All right, so we're going to talk about our favorite subject, which is payments. And especially with any retailer, like payments is always top of mind because, hey, they want to make money. So I kind of want to, so what we're going to do is kind of break it down in 3 subjects. So from the merchant side, from the consumer side, and also from the developer side. And so one thing that I want to start off is, with Adobe and also with Magento open source, we created payment services because we saw a hole in the gap as hey, we don't offer any type of payment solution in-house. And so I want to kind of like start off the conversation about what payment services is, how it's beneficial for merchants, and how it helps our merchants help our consumers. So Ritesh, kind of give a little background about payment services and, what's the story there?
Yeah, Nitu, thanks. As you mentioned, I mean, payments is fundamental to the e-commerce journey, right? If you're not collecting payments, you could basically say that your e-commerce store is closed to shoppers. And as we from an Adobe perspective, talked to different merchants and understood sort of the pain that happens in trying to manage all of that stuff, we thought that this would be a good value-added service if delivered properly and if delivered well, could really be helpful for folks. And let's say it's in 2021, the end of 2021, we officially launched what we call payment services, which is an integrated SaaS service into the Adobe Commerce and Magento open source platform. And it really helps sort of bridge that gap and bring together unified payments for customers. Now, it may not be right for everyone, but we're for the merchants that we've had that have used it and seen some benefit, we're seeing a lot of good success there.
And let's talk about personalization, right? Like, I think that's been a hot topic for this past year. What is the best route to make payments personalized for every shopper experience?
Yeah, payments is funny, right? Because everyone knows that you need it, and because of sort of the compliance rules around it, a lot of it is very sort of standard. But as we heard earlier today in the morning, right, do we want to always sort of look the same? And is there a way that we can inject that level of your own brand and targeting your specific shoppers in the right way? And I think that's where personalization comes in. So, even when considering a payments offering, consider that, like, 70% of shoppers say that, like, if their payment method is not there, that adds a little bit more friction into their shopping behavior, right? And really being able to figure out the right payment methods for your audience, because there is a such thing as paralysis through too many choices as well throughout that process. So being able to achieve that happy medium, I think, is important, and not only in the payment methods, but throughout the checkout at the different points of purchase, right? There's an item page and a product page where purchases can be made, and then there's the shopping cart checkout, and which are the right payment methods at which points during that customer journey. I think that's how you can achieve a little bit of personalization through payments.
And Mudita, how do you think, like, seeing, like, from the PayPal side, where do you see a lot of the friction from, like, hey, do I need to log in, or how can I quickly make a purchase versus, like, hey, I have to fill out everything all over again?
So I love that question, actually. Some of the more novel ways to think about checkout not only is personalization, but the seamless aspects of that. So how well can you go ahead and actually pick up the identity of your customer and allow them to seamlessly check out? Clearly, there are many technical ways of doing that, and I won't go into the details of the technical implementation, but that is absolutely where commerce is moving. For you to be able to understand not only how to get people through the system, get them going through the checkout process, but getting them through the pipeline a little bit faster. at least I'll say this, when I'm shopping on the mobile device, I see a prompt for a credit card. It gives me a little bit of a heartache because I have to then go and find my credit card, and that's not always the best option. And that's where just something like a PayPal experience comes in very handy. You can seamlessly transact if you have your email or you are part of the platform and can go on with your purchase. In fact, what we've found, just like Ritesh was saying, in 70% of the cases, if customers are able to find a payment method of their choice, they're more likely to complete the payment. And add to that, the seamlessness of the checkout experience just emboldens and empowers the customer even more. We can definitely go a little bit more into the detail a little bit later about the choice offerings that we were talking about as well, and to ensure that choice doesn't become a friction. At the end of the day, we have to respect the choices of our customers, so that's where the personalization becomes even more important. If you are given the choice of your payment, you're definitely more likely to complete that purchase, and that is something that is an exciting stat to go ahead and actually respond to from the merchant perspective.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that, right? Creating sort of that relationship and establishing your brand with that shopper that's going through is important. 43% of folks are very interested in sort of the security and trust aspect of it from a shopper perspective, right? And so if they could trust, to Mudita's point, right, like whether it's a PayPal experience or whether it's any other digital wallet like Apple Pay or something like that, that someone can really quickly get into and understand that their payment method is secure and they trust how that happens. Again, the name of the game is reducing friction in that checkout process. You can either reduce it by how many steps someone is taking, but also in the choices that are given and the comfort that they feel in terms of that checkout as well. In the case of PayPal, for example, personally from an Adobe perspective, we've talked to some merchants and they really like the fact that, their shoppers feel that comfort and trust, because if something should go wrong, you can go, take it up with PayPal and make sure. This is really important. I'll segue into a little bit of a tangent into international purchases as well. In this world, e-commerce is now, fully global and international. And there's two aspects of that I encourage you all to consider as you're trying to optimize sort of your businesses, right? There's the one side is if you're large enough and you've got operations in multiple countries, right? And, we just saw in the last session, right? Different payment methods in different regions and how that manifests itself. I think that's a little bit more complicated. But then there's the other side with anyone domiciled in a country. You still want to open up your doors to anyone internationally as well. And so being able to provide the right payment methods for someone as a shopper to be able to check out, and from a merchant perspective, being able to accept that, I think is super important. Because effectively, if you are not offering that payment of choice, especially internationally, you're basically closing your doors to anyone outside of your own domestic country.
Well, let's talk about, when we're talking about payment methods, let's talk about a hot topic, buy now, pay later, right? How do you think that has really changed the way merchants kind of offer this type of payment option to their shoppers, but also from like a shopper behavior too?
I'll start and
I've got an opinion, but I'll go ahead and add.
So I'll talk about two interesting stats, or just two opinions at least I have about this. At least from what we understand in the way PayPal merchants and consumers are interacting with buy now, pay later, it's quite an exciting offering for folks. It gives, again, that element of choice and provides a way of crediting or ensuring that there is room for credit for folks who may not be able to go ahead and pay for something at once, right? So it's definitely something that gives choice to our customers. At the moment, we have loans to 200 million consumers that are out for BNPL, and PayPal continues to be the top choice for pay later offers, offered as pay in 4 option currently with our platform on Adobe. So certainly something exciting is going on in the market, but with that comes the education for your customers as well, and making sure we're being upfront about what is it that you are signing up for? What is the responsibility as a customer and the merchant as this transaction is taking place? And that is where the elegance and the decency in the system is, to make sure that we are building awareness when this transaction happens. We've also seen through secondary research that buy now, pay later is an exciting option for some of the younger customers as well, who may not have some of the credit worthiness established in the system just yet. So it's a great way to actually include them in the regular economy as well. So those are certainly the positive aspects of buy now, pay later, or pay later as it's often called.
Yeah, I mean, that covers a lot of it. I would also add that, you know, with any payment method, you have to know the target audience that it's aimed after, but also every payment method has its positives and negatives. Like, you guys might have read stuff about buy now, pay later, and hey, you know, people can get themselves into debt. Well, you can with a credit card as well, you know. So you know, there is some level of education, you know, that needs to be done in terms of explaining to consumers what they're getting into. But flip it around to the other side, right? The ability for consumers and the right type of consumer to be able to take a purchase and split it up into, in the case of, you know, the PayPal offering that's embedded in Adobe's payment services, 4 interest-free payments split over time. I don't think it's any surprise that you know, when I tell you that, you know, we saw over the holiday season with the Adobe customers that was a very popular payment method because it gave that flexibility. Also, from a merchant perspective, when you have this type of payment method where people are able to split over time, and especially interest-free payments, which is music to everyone's ears, you can understand that the average order value also went up. And we see that with, you know, debit transactions versus credit transactions versus buy now, pay later. So I think there is a win-win situation here for, you know, the right audience. And, you know, again, in another survey that I was reading, you know, 31% of shoppers preferred a buy now, pay later type of service. You know, there are different ones out there. The one that Payment Services is integrated with is, you know, PayPal's buy now, pay later service. And the good thing about that, not only is it interest-free payments from the consumer side, but from the merchant side, there is no added surcharge. So I don't know how you guys pick up the interest, but I'm not gonna worry about it. It feels like it's a benefit from both the consumer and merchant side for the right sort of audience.
It's absolutely for the love of our consumers.
So, you know, offering payment methods, offering, you know, shoppers the ability to pay how they would like and meeting where they're at. I think what I hear a lot from merchants are, you know, they're scared to make any radical changes to their site or to their checkout experience because, you know, what if it breaks? So what advice do you have for the merchants as far as, like, it's okay to change your checkout experience if it's going to make it better?
Yeah, so that's where I think the platform play is extremely important. And that is one of the reasons Adobe Commerce and solutions such are important. One of the ways the industry is transforming, for sure, is using a platform play to make sure that you onboard into the platform. And if there are net new features that come into the ecosystem, plug and play or configurable options is something we avail or make sure is available for merchants. So in the case of Adobe Commerce, of course, PayPal is going to continue to experiment, for example, with more payment methods in future. There are going to be up-leveling that we do for the experience, for transaction information, transaction reporting, for example. But that shouldn't mean that there is an overhaul that the merchant now has to do for their ecosystem to make things work. And so that is one way. The platform plays absolutely an important play, but it does mean that, if you have an archaic solution in place, there are some thoughts you might have about upgrading the solution. But just like we heard from some of our colleagues, it's not a trivial task. It's something you have to think through. However, in order to modernize your checkout experience, some investments, at least for payments processing, payment settlement, dispute management, like the back office management, is critical. So it's a little bit of a mixed situation where I think folks who are onboarding to platforms such as Adobe, there is a little bit of a net gain just by using the platform as a service or platform as a product. But for everybody else, there could be a migration path that they might need to think through, which is not trivial.
I'll just keep it really simple. I don't think a lot of people, except maybe the three of us sitting up here, really geek out on payments and really want to understand how all of that stuff actually works. From a developer perspective and from a merchant perspective, if it's a black box that just sort of works and keeps you out of jail, it's probably a good thing, right? And I think that's how, that's the expectation we should all have as we're working with merchants and merchants as you're looking at the site. And so, the PCI compliance, the security aspects, the ability to, really change that customer journey, add different payments. One of the things that I've realized in my sort of payments journey and history working with payments is it's never the same. Like new things happen, things change. I mean, yes, we've always for the recent time had, credit cards and debit cards, but there's other different payment methods and digital wallets, and all of those have been, maybe in the last decade or so have become reality. And so the way that we have designed Adobe's payment services is to be a services-based solution. So there's a underlying sort of core service that goes in, but then we have the flexibility to release additional functionality on top without having to do a reinstall of the extension and that type of thing, right? And so we're seeing that received really well by merchants and developers alike because, hey, now you don't have to worry about that stuff. And once it's plugged in, merchants can be productive and, developers and agencies can go focus on something else that they may not be as excited about, or that they're more excited about than wondering whether they're going to be SAC-A compliant on the payment side or not.
And I think all of us have experienced like the aspect of, if it's not an up-to-date checkout experience, I don't want to deal with it. I think one thing that I want to also kind of like target is like, what about after the checkout? What about after a customer actually places an order? How does, what is important for a merchant or even for a developer to really access that type of information?
So in advocacy of developers, I will honestly say when we speak to our developers and they're working with merchants, and I'm not talking about the PayPal platform, I'm just talking about the persona generally, the merchant's journey does not stop with just checkout, obviously. I mean, there's just an end-to-end life cycle that they have to manage. The pre-processing, so getting somebody into the flow and making sure we're exciting everybody about our product. The checkout, which by the way should be seamless, a non-issue at all, it should just work. Payment processing should just work. But then a lot of the work for a merchant is if there's a physical product, shipping the product, if it is a digital good, for the digital good to land correctly. If there are disputes that we were talking about, that those are managed correctly. After all, you're paying for something and people have emotions attached anytime they buy something from a merchant site. And then obviously making sure the support experiences through all of these post-transaction flows work well. So there's so much heavy lifting that a merchant has to do just to suffice an order. And then forget the fact that there's taxation that they have to take care of, compliance, there's risk controls that they have to think through, etc. So how is it that we make a merchant's life much easier? And that's what developers actually think about day in, day out, and that's where they're spending a lot of time solving for the merchant. So one interesting idea is to not only provide the platform play that we talked about, right? I mean, at least for Adobe and several other platforms such as Adobe eCommerce, transaction management comes out of the box. Reporting comes out of the box. It is available to you and service to you. And I think that is the best in class and the most sensible way to do this. However, developers also get very excited about APIs. And if a lot of the transaction information is available via an interface for them so that they can go ahead and build out the dashboards that they need to make their lives easier and make several third-party systems interact with each other. So there are, again, multiple technical plays there, but the simplest one would be, of course, how can we make this, again, a configurable, a self-service option for our merchants and developers to save them time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great concept, and I in my simple mind, I summarize that by it's like a basic versus advanced, right? And so, for example, in payment services, we are handling sort of the I'd call it the basic functionality, which is actually pretty comprehensive, but we are tapping into the right APIs from a PayPal perspective, bringing all of that reporting right into the Magento or Adobe Commerce dashboard. And what that means is being able to manage your business in one place. And then because we have access to sort of that order information, you can really string together a nice picture of like, hey, we charged but didn't ship this order, or by the way, like we've shipped this order and we never captured the payment for it, for example, right? And so I think those are super useful from a developer standpoint. And then again, to continue that trend around, you don't really want to worry about it. You should really tap into a solution where if there is a problem with payments, because you're not an expert as a developer, which is fine, someone has to sort of have your back when that merchant actually goes down or there's some other challenges, right? And so it was one of the areas that made a lot of sense for Adobe to get into the payment services portion, because now with a strategic partnership with PayPal, we have very, very tight integration between companies. And so if any of our merchants have a problem, Adobe serves as sort of that first point of customer service. And then if there's any challenges, we sort of have our bat phone that goes right out to PayPal, and we're able to resolve situations for merchants, large and small, really rapidly. And the benefit is obviously in lack of loss of revenue and sales.
Awesome. So I know we're nearing time, but I wanted to open up. Does anyone have any questions? Hey, put them on the hot seat, because I do it all the time. Yes.
Yeah, I could try to answer that. So basically, the question was around, aside from PayPal type payment methods, can we use other, direct card and maybe other, sort of mechanisms into Magento and Adobe Commerce? And the simple answer is yes. You're right. It's an open platform, and we would never do something which sort of stops you from implementing and integrating other things. The hope of payment services is, the Adobe Payment Services, is to create a unified payment experience. So yes, today, we've got Apple Pay, we've got all of the PayPal methods, direct credit and debit card, but that's probably not all, right? I mean, maybe someone wants to include Amazon Pay or something else in there. And those can also be integrated in, and to create, again, when we talk about the right personalized experience for your shoppers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to this. I picked up that little nifty slogan from from checkout to payout. So all the reporting is available in the Magento open source or Adobe Commerce admin. So you can reconcile all of the transactions depending on if you're using payment services or another provider or additional payment methods, and be able to reconcile that with your PayPal reporting too.
Can I add to that, actually? So give me a chance to sort of explain sort of what we were saying. When we say PayPal, we're not talking about just the PayPal buttons. We're talking about the commerce solution that we power, which actually out of the box comes with card processing, Apple Pay, and in future, obviously based on the market needs, future payment methods that we were talking about as well. Therefore, as part of the platform, like Nitu and Ritesh were saying, you have the ability to use credit card. It's just powered by the PayPal payment ecosystem, as well as your choice of offering the PayPal buttons or not. So I appreciate exactly what you're saying, that I just want to offer credit card. So why should I bother with every other payment method that you're talking about? Maybe I love credit cards as well as Apple Pay. Absolutely the right point, and you should do the right thing for your merchant and customers, and that is the power of the platform, that you can go ahead and actually turn things on and off and make sure you're responding to the needs of your market. And that transaction information is surfaced up to you regardless of the payment method that you're using in an integrated fashion.
And we have merchants who are accessing that information and populating different ERP systems today, right? Because the settlement for some customers doesn't happen in Adobe Commerce, and we know that. Yes, and we can talk in a little bit more detail, but the simple answer is yes, but we understand the nuances behind it. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So we have merchants who tackle it in a couple of different ways. If you choose so, you can do offline payments in Adobe Commerce as well. We've got other customers who have, there was a spot on example, right? Customer service teams who are more comfortable on other systems and are doing some offline payments or phone payments that way. And if that system is sort of their ultimate system of record and where all of that reconciliation happens, they conduct those payments there, and then they can take their e-commerce transactions and sort of suck them in as well, and then create sort of that holistic picture at one place.
I would absolutely love to talk to you a little bit more about your specific use case. However, yes, because there is a concept of payment authorization, capturing, and then of course, once the order is processed, the entire transaction. So there are multiple checkpoints that are happening during a transaction flow that we need to ensure during the integration process are appropriately handled. So it's a little bit more of a technical nuance, absolutely something that can be done, but let's talk a little bit more about your specific use case. But essentially what you're saying is that part of the order can be captured, fulfilled, part of it needs to be done later. Absolutely. I've experienced that as a customer, PayPal customer myself. So I bet there are tons of examples of merchants integrating that way that we can go ahead and actually work with you on.
Any more questions?
One in the back.
Yeah.
This question definitely comes up in conferences. So let me just say I'm not a crypto expert for the team. So if there's a specific question, again, happy to take it down and make sure that the right folks answer it. PayPal does offer crypto as a payment method in the wallet where you can actually go ahead and use crypto to make a purchase, and then the merchants actually settle in a fiat currency. So that is an option already available if you pull up your PayPal app or your Venmo app at the moment. But I don't know if the question was beyond that, but that is something that is available already. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on the week, right? And crypto sort of has its ups and downs. Quite honestly, with a lot of the Adobe Commerce and Magento open source merchants, we're not seeing like a huge demand, right? If I ask, would you rather do crypto or Apple Pay, right? Like there will be a very clear answer. That being said, even with the integration that we have with PayPal and the PayPal wallet, that option is available. I've used it personally. It works. So if that turns out to be a use case, it can be supported. But if you're asking for trends, I mean, my personal view right now is, for most of the typical B2B and D2C cases, we don't really see a lot of people clamoring for the crypto currencies. But you can pay in, I don't know how many cryptocurrencies you guys accept now, but more than probably what your shoppers would expect.
Thank you, Ritesh, Mudita, and Nitu. If you have other questions, I'm going to ask you to meet us speakers later, but thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.